TCU having a new athletic director might put Sonny Dykes back on the hot seat in 2025. We'll talk about it next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team. We do it here every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also find us on your favorite podcast platform. It is Friday. We are presented today by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com today. TCU football will find out their bowl selection on Sunday afternoon, so we'll have coverage of that over the weekend. TCU women have a big game against South Carolina Sunday night. The TCU men bounce back in a huge way, getting a victory at home against Xavier on Thursday, and we'll also get to some of your thoughts. But we start this afternoon, morning, whenever you're listening, with the discussion surrounding the future of TCU's athletic department, specifically the athletic director position. If you missed it, Jeremiah Donati is moving on to take the same job at the University of South Carolina. It was somewhat surprising, didn't hear any chatter about it until it happened. Obviously, a chance to move to the SEC, but what it means is TCU's got to fill that spot. They have to go hire a new AD, and there's a ton of moving parts with that. It's a very important hire. We're talking about realignment that still the wheels are churning around college sports and specifically in college football. NIL seems like it's coming down a track where it's going to be more privatized and it's going to be up to the schools to allocate these funds and give these resources, which should make things more above board, but it will also put the pressure of fundraising and making sure everything goes smoothly solely on these universities. And one aspect of this hire that I find really interesting is new athletic director means a fresh take on a lot of things. And one of those things is going to be evaluating the current coaches you have and seeing where they are. And Sonny Dykes, when TCU lost to Houston and fell to 3-3 on the season, and they were going into the bye week, there was a ton of chatter, at least amongst the fan base. And I think even Steven Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram wrote an article about it. How long of a leash do you get if you had unprecedented success in year one, but it quickly unravels on you? You go 12-0, you make the Big 12 title game, you win a playoff game, reach heights that the school had never seen, you fall in the national title game, you follow that up with a 5-7 season. Halfway through this year, it was a mess, and rightly so. There was a lot of discussion and questions about, is this the right guy to move forward with this program? To his credit, he righted the ship. He answered those critics in a pretty resounding way in the back half of the season, even with the schedule being softer to a certain extent. They went 5-1. They made a bowl game. They won 8 games. They have a chance to finish the season with 9 wins. I know a lot of people aren't satisfied. I'm not telling you to be satisfied. But my point is, if you get a new athletic director in this seat and he doesn't have the type of relationship that Jeremiah Donati had with Sonny Dykes, because I think it's important to note, when Gary Patterson was let go, there was a coaching search. But it sure seemed like they had zeroed in on who they wanted to hire from the jump. I remember a press conference that Donati held shortly after Gary moved on and the dust was kind of settling, and he was talking about, what do we want in a head coach? And the qualities that he listed: offensive-minded, someone who understands the way that college football is moving in terms of NIL and in terms of the transfer portal. That was Sonny Dykes that he was describing. I know they interviewed Dion, and the players made a push for that. I remember Zach Evans sent out a message like, hey, that's who we want. Billy Napier, there was some flirtation there, but I think Billy ultimately had his sights set on an SEC school. And once the Florida job came open, it wasn't really an option anymore. Matt Campbell's supposedly in the mix. I don't know how serious they were about that. But the Iowa State coach probably would have been perfect time to grab him. They were sort of on a downswing, but now they're playing at a high level again. But point being, there were a few names that were thrown around. But people in the know kept coming back to the fact that, well, Sonny was here as an analyst in 2017. He's got a good relationship with the athletic department. He understands DFW recruiting. He understands the modern world of college sports. He did a great job at SMU. And even as SMU was in the midst of a historic season at that time, things started to fall apart because it became an open secret that he was going to move to Fort Worth and take the job. And a lot of that was based on the fact that he had a good relationship with Jeremiah Donati. And they wanted to work together, and that's who he kind of circled as the guy. And once he found out that there was mutual interest, there wasn't really anything to stop it. Which is fine. It was his hire, and he made it, and some success has come with it. But new person that doesn't have that history and that's looking at this and saying, you know what? I don't have that relationship capital. I don't necessarily have that built-in loyalty to this person. I thought this was going to be a big year already. I said, even with the 8 wins, if TCU's not in the Big 12 championship game, or at least not in contention, and you might say, well, what do you mean by contention? That could mean a lot of things. Legitimately in the mix in the last week of the regular season. And in my mind, that doesn't mean like if you win and 4 people lose, you get in. I know mathematically TCU was involved up until the end, but we all knew it wasn't happening. I'm saying you control your own destiny, or maybe you just need one team to trip up to get a spot. If that doesn't happen, I think you got to talk about making a move. And I feel like it's more likely with a new athletic director in charge who doesn't have that loyalty to the current coaching staff. And that doesn't mean I don't want them to succeed. I do. And I think you have to give them a ton of credit for what they did down the stretch here. I feel like here's the biggest challenge for both Sonny Dykes and the new athletic director. TCU has to find a way to get relevant again. Who is talking about TCU football outside of this space in the various other TCU podcasts, websites that do a great job covering the team? I'm not hearing them. If you are hearing them mentioned, it's probably in a negative way because as I think it was Matt Welker who pointed this out yesterday. Is anyone else sick of TCU getting dissed by ESPN and other talking heads when discussing the 12-team playoff? The team gets zero credit for beating Michigan. Yes, I am tired of that. TCU has become a constant talking point for people that are like, well, the Big 12, any group of 5 team, whatever the case is, any sort of underdog, if you want to put it that way, anybody that dares to challenge the SEC and Big 10 in the rankings in the playoff, they shouldn't be taken seriously because of what Georgia did to TCU. And it's such a stupid argument because as Matt pointed out, TCU wasn't put in the national title game. They won a game to get there. They beat Michigan. Yes, they fell on their face on a Monday night in January at SoFi Stadium. I watched it. I wasn't happy about it. They had to take their medicine for that. But you can't say they didn't deserve to be in the playoff because they won a playoff game. It doesn't make any sense. Stop using that tired narrative. However, that's people's lasting memory of TCU. Because the last 2 seasons, quite frankly, they haven't been part of the national landscape. The last time they were really talked about amongst, national pundits and writers was the Colorado game, season opener a couple years back that they lost. And then when they lost that game to Houston and suddenly some people took notice and they were like, wait, What is going on in Fort Worth? Is it time to start questioning where they're at? Had multiple games at the end of the season on ESPN Plus. Arizona at home, Cincinnati on the road, and not on normal TV. And I know that's not everybody's biggest concern. It's not necessarily mine either. I just want to win. But you got to make sure that people are noticing what's going on and that they're like, hey, this is a successful program. They've had a lot of consistent success because that's what happened in the Mountain West, right? They kept winning. And then finally, when an opportunity came along in the Big 12, it was like, hey, slide in here. I don't know what the Big 10 and SEC are going to do. But I know the Big 12 is already at a disadvantage. And TCU kind of within that will be at a disadvantage if they keep losing. So there's a lot of pressure to get back to those championship caliber expectations. And I just wonder if a new voice walks in and says, yeah, we can't afford to be patient here. We can't afford to continue to wait for the O-line to get itself sorted out. You're bringing in the number one recruiting class in the Big 12. I know part of that's because you got 29 people. I know not everybody's going to be ready to play. But you have to start taking advantage of your talent advantage. Not to be redundant, but I was. Okay, so you're not the best team up front. You got really good skill players. You got a returning quarterback. Everything that is hopeful and optimistic about 2025 is pointing right now to continuity. You have a quarterback and an OC that will be working together really for their third year in a row, second full year of starter-OC relationship. A coach that has been around for a while now. A DC that's got year two after making some improvements in year one. This is the time. I am okay with how this season finished, but I'm only okay with it if it springboards into next year in a positive way. And maybe that's a cop-out, but it's one that I'm comfortable with. When we come back, TCU basketball. How about it? Jamie Dixon squad. They get a victory against a Big East school at home on Thursday. We'll break that down. TCU women, big matchup on Sunday night coming up here on Locked On Horned Frogs. Mint Mobile. If you were tired of paying insane bills each and every month for your mobile provider, why not get a great deal? Everybody loves a great deal, but you don't want to do a million different things and have to jump through all these hoops to get it. Mint Mobile is no BS. It's so easy to get wireless for $15 a month. All you got to do is get a 3-month plan, and it's yours. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. Bring your phone number along with you and all your existing contacts to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 GBs on unlimited plans. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions do apply. See Mint Mobile for details. So TCU basketball had an awful weekend last weekend. They dropped a game to Santa Clara. It wasn't close. Had a lead late against Colorado State. Faltered at the end. Ended up going to overtime. Lost. And things were not looking great. But I'll say this about Jamie Dixon. I don't know how this team's going to turn out. They've got some deficiencies that I'll get to in a moment. He does have a knack, the last few seasons especially, when it looks like they're dead in the water, he finds a way to rally the team, make some adjustments, and get a victory. They're playing Xavier in the Big 12 Big East Challenge on Thursday night, and they get a win 76-72. Shot 46% from the field, 33% from three, and your leader in points was Frankie Collins with 16 points. Frankie Collins has been so impressive, man. He was 7 of 13 from the field. He just looks very in control. Played 33 minutes, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. I saw in the post-game presser, Jamie talked about just how he does a little bit of everything for him. The issue is, that being said, Frankie's great. I love it. Coming into the season, the scouting report about him was he's your old school true point guard. He's there to distribute, to run the offense, to lead the team, to make sure that everything's going how it should, and that they were bringing in firepower and shooters at other spots like Wenzel, like Noah Reynolds. Noah Reynolds didn't play last night, has a wrist injury. Got some young guys who can go, got some freshmen who can play. Ernest Uday was supposed to improve. But we're through 8 games now. Through 8 games, it's pretty clear at the moment that Frankie Collins is your best scorer, your most consistent scorer. I mean, you could throw Vashawn Alette he wasn't great last night, but you see the potential. He can go get buckets. Had a tough night shooting the basketball. But Frankie's your most consistent scorer. And while I've been impressed with his ability, I mean, he can put it on the deck and get to the rim. That's where he really excels. It's not like, oh, he's your best scorer just because he's so much better at this than we thought. He's your best scorer because around him, everyone else continues to struggle to kind of get a foothold and do some good things. Now, defense was better. They forced some turnovers. They were able to get some key turnovers, especially in the last couple minutes of that ball game. Turned Xavier over 15 times last night. Still gave up 47% shooting, though. And it's not super consistent yet on that side of the floor. But crunch time of that ball game, Xavier ran a nice play, ran a guy off a screen. He hits a 3. They go up by 2 points and didn't look great. TCU gets the ball back. They come out of a timeout. Brennan Wenzel gets free, shoots a corner 3, gets fouled, makes 2 of the 3 free throws to tie it up. Xavier brings it back up the floor, and they're dribbling at the top of the key, getting set up to do some sort of screen and roll action. And Ernest Uday gets matched up on one of the guards about 30 feet from the hoop. And he shows, meaning like he puts his body out in front of this guard and starts to guard him. But he's doing it with the intention of giving Vashawn Alette the opportunity to fight around the screen. And then once he does, he'll fade back and man up on the center that is his matchup. But as he's showing out on this pick, he just puts his long arms out there and pokes the ball away. And in a scramble, gets the ball, tosses it over to Vashawn Alette, who makes a very athletic play because the throw is a little bit behind him. He catches it like one-handed like a receiver, spins in one motion, lays it in. TCU takes the lead. They get another turnover. This time it's Alette with the steal. He hits a couple free throws, and that was your ball game. So some huge crunch time possessions there where defensively they got it done and it led to transition offense. And they didn't have to live in the half court. Half court offense, when it matters, still got to work that out. Micah Robinson was really good in the first half as far as like young guys who did some nice things, but he finished with 10 points. He had 10 points at halftime. He only played 13 minutes. Got to play more minutes. David Punch is a good rebounder. I like what he's brought to the table. they've got some young guys who can play. You see the potential. It's just not translating to great moments on the court on a consistent basis yet. But that's a win you had to have. I mean, if you're going to get back on track and get serious about this thing, you had to find a way to win at home last night, and they did that. Ernest Uday, just an incredible athlete. I mean, he made that steal. He had multiple lob dunks yesterday that were just wild. He did a one-handed, somebody tossed it up to him. He had to reach back with his left hand, throw it down, type of thing that only you and I could do in a Nerf hoop. Had another two-handed finish, running to the rim where he caught it and found a way to finish. But it's so frustrating to me. I love it. I love the athleticism. I know he's doing what he can. Just no post game. Like he can do the rim runner stuff, but you dump it down to him on the block, and there's just not much there. But he made some nice plays last night, gave them some valuable minutes, and I mean Jamie in that post game presser that I was watching, he looked like a guy that's still just figuring this out. Like he's trying to figure out who on this team he can trust, and that's pretty typical of this time of year, especially when you got a heavy transfer influence. You wish it would come together quicker, but hey, they got to win on Thursday night, and they play Vandy this weekend. So quick turnaround before getting a matchup with the Commodores. When we come back, TCU women's basketball. We'll break that down next here on Locked on Horned Frogs, your team every day. FanDuel. It's where the game starts. We tell you about them almost every day here on the Locked On Network. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. One $5 bet. You win that bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. Make a $5 investment today. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. NFL games, college basketball, NBA, NHL. It's a fantastic time to be a sports fan. Right in the middle of the holidays. You win one $5 bet, you get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official betting partner of the NFL and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So 6 o'clock on Sunday night, TCU and South Carolina. South Carolina women are 8-1. They're coming off an 11-point win against number 8 Duke. And their one loss was to UCLA. They lost that game 77-62, but Don Staley's club, once again, it's very, very good. They are led by a guard/forward, Chloe Kitts, who's averaging 12 points and 8 boards a game. She's 6'2". They've also got a young, talented freshman in Joyce Edwards. They've got some players returning from that national title team. This is a really good basketball team. TCU once again will be tested, but they've answered the call so far. They did it against NC State. They won that game. They did it against Notre Dame. I think despite the ranking, South Carolina is the best team in the country. So this is a great measuring stick for TCU basketball and Mark Campbell once again to try to find a way to get this done and win the ball game. Again, 6 o'clock on ESPN2, and then you can also go there in person at Dickies Arena. Haley Van List, Sedona Prince, can they continue to make things happen? Big game in women's hoops. I do want to briefly get to some of the things that you chimed in about from yesterday's show about Jeremiah Donati moving on. Blake Murphy says Donati was a serious downgrade from Del Conte. TCU Athletics can do much better. We need a visionary and an AD with a higher bar than Donati. Yeah, I think Chris Del Conte is great, and multiple people said that. That's why I got hired by Texas. He's doing a fantastic job there. And one of those things where, I knew he was good when he was here, but I guess it didn't fully click in my mind just how elite he was at his job until he left. But I agree with you, Blake, in that this is a great time to go get somebody who can thrust you into the new world of college sports. The Brett Yormark hire, even though the Big 12 is still falling behind in a lot of ways, that was such a shot in the arm to this league. Because Bob Bowlesby, God bless him, he just wasn't a dynamic personality. Seemed like somebody kind of just would go with the flow and didn't understand the way the sports world was shifting beneath his feet. So having someone who at least has a grasp on that is imperative. But yeah, it's a really important hire. They got to go find somebody who can make it happen. Jim Norris also said, too bad we can't get Del Conte back. For sure. Texas Pride says it means that Jeremiah Donati doesn't have any loyalty to the school or the university. I mean, I get it. It's the world we're living in now. People are moving jobs around, and that's college athletics. Big Easy says Mac Brown for AD. That's an interesting name. I don't think he'll be up there, but he's got those Texas ties. And, I mean, for a long time, he wasn't necessarily at North Carolina for a super long time in his second stint there, but everybody thought that was the plan, that he was going to just coach for a few years and then become an athletic director. And I think Mac would be outstanding at the fundraising part and those types of things. So we'll see. I know he said in his retirement press conference, this wasn't the sport he signed up for, though. So I don't know if he's super intrigued at working in college athletics anymore. He might be a little burned out. We'll talk about it more on Monday. We'll have a bowl selection to discuss and more. Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast.